Here.
Representative Yeargan.
Here.
Representative Diamond. Representative Grant. Representative Newton. Representative Peters.
Here.
Representative Strong.
Here.
All righty. I'd like to note that our new representatives, Diamond and Newton, as well as Representative Grant, are at the new member orientation for the House in Tallahassee today. Therefore, they're excused. When that was scheduled, after the delegation meeting was scheduled, we had the decision to make as to whether to try to change this meeting, which we had all agreed to some time ago to have, or go ahead and have it. I made the decision that we would not take any action today. We would just take testimony and have discussion, and therefore we would go ahead and have it with the folks that could be here. The delegation will have another meeting on Friday, December the 2nd, which will be our first regular meeting of the year, and at that point in time we'll take any action that might have been necessary based on the testimony today. Thank you for coming. I'm hopeful that we don't need to take the entire time that this meeting has been advertised. I think we're going to have some presentations, and we'll have some discussion. We will have some audience participation if necessary, but really would like to move it along as quickly as we can and not have to take the full time. So I want to also change the order, which I thought I said yesterday to do. Representative Peters has requested that we change the order of, let's see, first of all, we want to introduce the elected officials that are here. We have Wanda Dudley, the mayor of Kansas City. Welcome. We have Commissioner Jack Long from Pinellas County. We have Yolanda Rowan, the City of Gulfport Council member. Deborah Schnecker, the mayor of St. Pete Beach. And we, of course, have Mayor Kreisman from St. Petersburg, who we will be hearing from. I haven't been here long enough to look around to see if I missed anyone. Did I miss any elected officials? Okay. So with that, I'm going to call on Representative Peters to introduce Dr. and I'm not even going to try this name. I'm going to call on Representative Peters for this introduction.
Thank you, Senator. Actually, I was having him go 6, just like the agenda says, but that's fine. We can have it. No, sir. No.
Okay, I'm sorry.
But we can have it.
No, we'll go with the order. Let's have the presentation for Mary Yeargan with the Department of Environmental Protection.
There was supposed to be a button here for me to push, and I don't see it. For those of you who were here the last delegation meeting, my PowerPoint didn't work, so thank you. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for inviting me to speak to you again. This is a follow-up to our previous presentation to you. This is a 60-day update. As you all might be aware, the Governor Scott, had requested that the Department of Environmental Protection investigate the causes of the overflows that occurred over the last year to year and a half. And so the DEP has been interviewing staff from St. Petersburg. We have focused primarily on the operational staff, those who are engaged in day-to-day operations at the wastewater facilities, along with some of the engineers. And we have been collecting and reviewing various engineering reports. Some of these have been shared with the DEP as part of permit applications, and others are internal documents that the city may have had done for their own internal planning purposes, but we have been able to access those documents and review them. We have been discussing the overall system, collection and wastewater treatment plants with the St. Petersburg staff to see what would be the most appropriate improvements to ensure that the kinds of spills that occurred don't happen again. And we have also engaged with the DEP staff in Tallahassee and asked them for their engineering expertise in looking at some of these reports. We had mentioned at our last meeting that part of DEP's outreach and trying to understand the overall needs of the community with all of the utilities in our district. We have had meetings and invited all of the utilities, not just Pinellas County. And we've had our fourth all-utility meeting, and I think one of the takeaways from there was they're all very concerned about private laterals. If they take care of their own publicly owned piping, how are they going to deal with the privately owned pipes, which are also in need of repair? And we have also had the opportunity to meet with the City of Gulfport to discuss their ongoing system improvements. They've recently received some monies from the DEP from the state revolving loan fund in order to make improvements to their collection system. You might recall they have a collection system that then discharges their wastewater to the city of St. Petersburg's wastewater treatment systems. So what caused the SSOs in St. Petersburg from our perspective? There were engineering reports from 2012 and 2014, and everyone has talked about this. We talked about it at the last meeting, that said there could be some capacity issues if the flow was diverted from the Albert Whitted. The capacity issue was going to have a 0.01% chance of occurring because it was such an extreme flow that would cause a problem. And it happened. It just simply rained so much that that very minute chance of a serious problem occurred. And one of the things that I had forgotten in order to put some of this into perspective is that when the decision was made to close the Albert Whitted, we were in the downturn. And one of the things we're currently looking at is how that could have affected the overall decision to close the Albert Whitted. We don't necessarily have an answer to that yet, but as we all remember what it was like from 2009 to 2012, it was pretty rough for all of us, not just the municipalities. So there could have been budget issues that were involved with this decision, and one of the issues was, from an engineer's perspective, who we had an opportunity to speak with, was as they diverted the flow after lift station 85, y'all might recall there was lift station 85 that was constructed to take the flow from the Albert Whitted to the Southwest plant. As they tried to divert the flow, if half of the flow was diverted to the Albert Whitted, the biological systems, to the Southwest plant, the biological systems in the Albert Whitted began to fail. And so I think we all need to also keep in mind that for all of our utilities, these are complex mechanical, electrical, biological, and chemical processes that go into the overall treatment of our wastewater. So there were upgrades that have been permitted as we come up to this time. And there are other projects that St. Pete is beginning to provide us their applications for. And I want to assure everyone that we will expedite these reviews as quickly as we can, because we too don't want this to happen again. One of the questions I was asked at the last meeting was, would the overflows have occurred had the Albert Whitted not been closed? Well, we remember from all of the accounts, there is the facility called the Northwest Facility. And the Northwest Facility has no connection whatsoever to the Albert Whitted facility. And so the overflows that occurred at the Northwest Facility would have happened regardless of the Albert Whitted. If the Albert Whitted had been operating, we likely would not have seen the discharge of the 100 million gallons to the bay, because that would have been wastewater that would have been treated by the Albert Whitted, because it came from that basin. To give you an idea of what the operators confronted on this day, and I didn't realize this until I actually went out and spoke with the operators, because I don't see these emergency situations when they happen. This was what was happening at the Northwest Water Reclamation Facility. What you see there, I believe, are two 10 million gallon tanks. And at the top of the tanks, they have vents. And the water was coming into the facility in such volumes that the water was coming out of the top of the 10 million gallon tanks. And they had to make a decision what to do with this water. And needless to say, if you were operating that tank or that facility, how would you feel if you were confronted with this issue? It'd be difficult. And so when we talk about Jungle Lake, all of this water was heading to the south towards 22nd Avenue. And when the water was going to cross 22nd Avenue, it was going to flood the homes on the other side of 22nd Avenue. So the decision was made to take pumps and pump that water into the stormwater collection system, which went under 26th Avenue and discharged into Jungle Lake. This water did not meet high disinfectant for putting down an injection well, which is what they normally would do. But of course they couldn't pump water that fast down injection wells. There are limits to what you can do. And so we have looked at the data. It did not meet high disinfection, but the data did not look alarming. It didn't meet. That's a fact. It was a violation, but it wasn't raw sewage. That's what I'm trying to tell you. We've also looked at the numbers for wet flow and dry flow for St. Petersburg at their various facilities. And I have to put up glasses for this. If you will take a look at, I'm going to have to come up here.
We have the dates during Hurricane Hermine, and depending on the volume of flow over time, when they had excess flows, those are the dates we used to evaluate the systems for Hermine. Interestingly enough, if you look at the Southwest plan, we used the entire month of September to evaluate the flow for Southwest, because they did not come back to an average inflow rate until October the 13th. So the storm was long gone. And where was that water coming from? That water was coming from groundwater and surface water that was inflowing into the pipes. And it took 6 weeks for them to come back to a normal flow. If you look at the Northwest plan, is 20 million gallons a day. And their dry weather flow, which is predominantly sewage, is 10 million gallons a day. So their flow tripled during Hurricane Hermine from what we would expect on a summer day. Now, the amount of septic going into their lines should not change between dry weather and wet weather. It's definitely from the wet weather events that this huge surcharge occurred.
Can I ask you a question while we got this chart up?
Yes, sir.
What that would appear to mean to me is that, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Southwest plant, even without the storm, is pushing the upper limits of what is permitted on a regular basis.
It's close, yes,
So, I mean, that's every day.
yes.
Thank you.
So, why did this happen? Why do they have so much inflow and infiltration? Well, it's everyone across Pinellas County has inflow and infiltration, but we heard from the operators they had never seen this kind of an event. One of the operators had worked at the Southwest facility for 40 years. And he said he had never seen an event that occurred quite like this. That they were going fine, and all of a sudden it was just a straight line up to this massive flow. And he said he was getting shell and parts of asphalt or brick in some of his filters. And this means there was some sort of event where perhaps it's a roadway was discharging in. We just don't know why it happened, quite the way it happened. As we said in the last meeting, we had a consent order with the City of St. Petersburg based on the events of the 90s. And of course, that's when we had our last El Nino. And St. Petersburg spent between $60 and $70 million on their lining of pipes. They're trying to correct the I&I issues. And they thought they were in good shape. Everyone we talked to said they thought they were in good shape for their I&I. But there was a drought, and that makes people comfortable with the situation they're in. And so, and maybe Mr. Tankersley, the mayor, will address this, but they have had a consulting firm looking at flow in their pipes and from their various subbasins within St. Petersburg. And it's my understanding that 15% of their pipes are in dire need of repair, and 45 to 50% need some sort of repair. We also are very well aware that some of the wholesale customers have excessive inflow and infiltration. I mentioned at the last meeting we do have a consent order with St. Pete Beach to try and address their inflow problems. We had a meeting with Gulfport recently to discuss with them what they're planning on doing, and we will be meeting with Treasure Island as well. And we'll meet with whomever we find there are issues as we go along and expand our view of all of our utilities. To give you an idea of the inflow and infiltration from the interlocal customers, which the green line you see is St. Pete Beach. And if you look from left to right, you can see a general trend towards higher flows overall. And all this up and down is seasonal. When it's wet, they discharge more water into the sanitary sewer system. The purple line is Treasure Island, and the red line is Gulfport. When the decisions were made and the reports were done on the closure of the Albert Whitted, population projections looked pretty low for the growth in St. Pete. And the location of future development was not necessarily anticipated correctly. I think that the growth was anticipated for northeast St. Pete and instead downtown Boone. And that was not anticipated. And then, of course, I've mentioned the drought conditions led one to believe that things were better than they were. And so we think it would be appropriate to have a global view of the collection and treatment system and not simply look at what this facility needs to do and this facility. Take a real global look and see how you might be able to divert flows from here to there in order to have better control over the flow when big storm events occur. When the study that it was a minor chance that you'd ever reach this peak flow in excess of 60 million gallons per day. At one point at the Southwest plant, there was a peak flow value, not all day, but at one point it was a peak flow value of 65 million gallons a day during the day. That is a lot of water. And the operator at the Southwest plant let us know that if he had 40 million gallons a day, his permitted capacity is 20, and his headworks were fine until he reaches 40 million gallons a day. At that point, his headworks flood, and then they have to go into sort of emergency operations. What are we going to do to accept all the flow that's coming into the plant? Doesn't happen every day, but in these big rain events, yes, it does. And so that has to be looked into and adjusted. Some of the short-term, long-term fixes we've been speaking with St. Petersburg about include installation of additional filters. These are newer kinds of filters. They're called disc filters. And they're looking at putting those at both the Southwest and at the Northwest treatment plants. That will help them once the water gets into the plant. If they have additional filters, they can process the water faster, and that would be most helpful. They need to find a way to divert flows at the Albert Whitted at their headworks in the event they go above 40 million gallons a day, and this is something they've committed to working on. Of course, inflow and infiltration at lining of pipes is extraordinarily important. And we're looking to see how robust a program that can be put together. Because, of course, you have to find the contractors who can do it. And it takes time. And how much can you do in a period of time? And that's what we're looking at. And we have also discussed an update of their capacity maintenance operation and management program, taking all of these factors into consideration. Some of their long-term plans, and I may be taking part of your talk, I don't know. Some of their long-term plans include additional clarifiers so that they can handle more water, additional injection wells so they can get rid of this effluent faster, and they won't have that situation you saw with the water coming out of the tops of the tanks. And they are looking towards lift station construction to transfer the flow from facility to facility to better control the flows going into the various plants. And I want to bring up, can there be zero SSOs? Which SSO, sanitary sewer overflow? Well, it's unlikely that you're never going to have an overflow. It's just We have mechanical failures, just like we have on our car. We have electrical failures, like when lightning strikes our house. And then we have human error. And not all of the human error is within our circle of control, because we have contractors working in the right-of-ways, and we can't control that. And then we wonder, how big of a system do we need to build in order to handle these wet weather flow events? Well, if you overbuild for the wet weather events, then you won't function properly for your dry weather. You're going to have oversized pipes and your gravity pipes quite often, so you need the pressure in the pipe to keep the flow going. If you have an oversized pipe with a lot of airspace in it, you're going to have stagnant flow, and then you're going to build up gases in that pipe. And
This was in my presentation, you didn't see the last time, but that pipe that you see in the picture is actually one that belonged to the city of Largo. And you can see the holes in the tops of the pipe. And that's from gases building up in the pipes and causing crown corrosion. So you can actually do more damage to your system in the long run by overbuilding. So there's a balance there, and we all need to look to that balance.
On a wastewater system, is there a periodic, well, in fact, I know there is, because I have a wastewater, my car wash. Is there, what, on a city wastewater system,
Okay.
what's the renewal period for the permit?
5 years, or if there's a very good history of compliance, you may request a 10-year permit.
Okay, as a part of the renewal, is there any requirement on a city system for some sort of periodic, camera check of pipes, or any kind of way to assure that if we get pipes like this, they know about it and can fix it?
It is up to the municipality to ensure that they keep their systems in proper working order. There are no specific requirements